There we go. I also have to tell you, for the very first time ever on a Zoom call, I am using a Windows computer rather than my MacBook because I decided to use my work computer because it's a big screen rather than my MacBook that I normally use. I have no idea how to work Windows. So I might need someone's help when I can't find the right button. Already I'm seeing that the original sound button is not there. Are we supposed to have that in Windows? Does anyone know? I don't know. We'll figure it out. So lovely to have you guys here. My name is Stephen. Everybody keeps writing to me as Dr. Clark, and I hate it. Please call me Stephen. This is my name. I don't understand why we are obsessive about calling everyone Doctor this, Doctor that. That is some weird American thing that I have nothing to do with. As you can tell, I'm not American. I just live and teach here. But all my students here at NSU call me Stephen. I say to them, we're all adults, we're all professionals, just some a little more experienced than others. We're all musicians. Please call me by my name. So that's all I'm going to say about it. You can write to me as much as you like, but you can call me Stephen, and that's absolutely fine. The only thing I would say is if you're writing to me for like university business, like you want some scholarship money because you want to come study with me, then probably call me Dr. Clark, not because of me, but because I'll have to forward it to some of my colleagues also on the audition committee, and they get a bit funny about stuff like that. So call me Stephen in this class though, please. Great to have you here. This is a huge class. I can't even see everyone. There's so many of us. We're spread across lots of screens. So like last year for Flute World, I recorded all three of the Texas all-state studies. I just quickly checked, actually. Flute World are amazingly efficient, and they have already uploaded everything. So if you want to hear my versions of them, go and check out their YouTube channel. They're all there, and they even have like the scrolling sheet music on it, so you can follow along. These studies, I have to say, are hard. Last year, I remember when Flute World approached me and said, hey, record the three studies for us. Being a British person, knowing nothing about Texas and Texas All-State, I was like, sure, no problem. And then I looked at them, I was like, boy, these are quite tricky. And I had to practice them for a week or two. And then that was fine. And then this year they said, hey, let's do Texas All-State again. So they sent me the book and I opened it and I was like, really? This is what you're all expected to play? These three are killers. So I appreciate you all being here, and you already have my full respect and admiration for doing this whole process, and even more so for joining us and trying to improve on your current level. So today we're going to look at the first of them, which is number 8 out the book, the G major Carg Alert. If you don't have the Mary Karen Clardy book, I'm sorry, the sun is belting in my office windows and I don't have blinds on them, so I hope you can see. If you don't have this and you're just using the Carg Alert like studies on their own, I know they're on IMSLP. You can also just buy the Carg Alert studies. That's fine, but I actually would recommend for the purpose of the all states process to get the book because there's tons of changes. And even if you look at the All-State website, when it lists all the studies for you, you'll see all the errata, as they call them there, which are like changes or misprints or whatever. And there are surprisingly quite a lot of them, especially since this book is so popular. And how many editions are we on now? I dread to think. I don't know. It doesn't tell me in the front, but I don't know why they haven't changed it. Anyway, that book is available. Of course, I'm going to tell you to go get it from Flute World, but you can get it wherever you want. What I did just find out, I wrote this down. If anyone does not have the book, Flute World are offering discount. Oh, right in front of me. If you go to, like when you're in the checkout, and this applies to anything, I think, any sheet music anyway, I don't know about instruments, but if you type in Perk Match 15, I know it sounds a weird code, Perk Match 15, you'll get 15% discount. All my students here do it. I don't even know if that's an official thing, but it works, so use it. I know someone from Flute World is listening to this class, and they'll probably tell me if that's real or not, but please use it, get your discount on the book. Anyway, let's have a chat about study number 1, TMA study number 1. Everybody switch their cameras off just for a second. Okay, if you have signed up to be an active performer, like to demonstrate some moments for us, switch your camera back on, just so I can see if they're here. Okay, nobody. Just you and me. Okay, everyone can pop their cameras back on. So what I thought we'll do to start with is I want to just listen to my recording of it. Now, the reason I want to listen to it is because I want to show you a few moments that I don't think are so successful, so that you can watch out for those. I practiced it for about 2.5 weeks, I think. And when I say I practiced it, like I really practiced it. It wasn't just like I played it for 5 minutes a day. You know, I sat with my metronome. I did it as like a good flute student, and I practiced it. Okay. Share screen. Sorry, I'm doing this for the first time through Windows. So let's see if I can get this to actually work. Share. Great. Can you guys see my screen? Oh, hang on. I already know I've done something wrong. Stop the share. I have to select so you can hear audio. Here we go. Share sound. Perfect. Share. Okay. Now, if I can just move this. There we go. Give me a wave if you can see the video clip. Can you see it? Yeah, give me a thumbs up. Excellent. Okay, hopefully you can hear it as well. It's not going to, oh my gosh, look at that for a freeze frame. It's not going to sound as crystal clear, obviously, as if you're listening online. But as I say, it's all on YouTube. Now, I apologize for being in my shorts and t-shirt as well. I was literally moving from Alabama to Louisiana when I had to film this. My apartment was full of boxes. My office was in the middle of being painted. So I was just in literally the clothes I was painting my office in here at Northwestern State. This is my first semester as flute professor here. So let's have a listen. We already have a chat. Thank you, Louisa. Okay, here we go. Let's listen to it through. It's like 1 minute long or something, 50 seconds long, okay? Follow your music along if you need it. Still people in the waiting room. Let's let them in. Okay, here we go. Let's have a quick listen. And also, make sure you understand what all these little directions are, because that's really important to understanding this study. We'll talk about that. Here we go. Okay. Oh, stop. It's very short, but it's kind of tough. It's a very tricky 50 seconds that we have to deal with here. Of course, your version might be a little longer than 50 seconds, and that's fine. So first of all, please give me a wave if you're actually taking the All-State edition. And give me a wave if you're just here because you want to see what's going on. Okay, about half and half. Perfect. I'll try and remember so I can ask the right people the right things. So here's how I approach a study. And I really do approach a study completely differently to how I might approach a piece for a concert. Apart from all-state editions and maybe some college editions, like my students here at NSU have an etude exam in November each year, which some of them love and some of them hate, but I had to do it when I was growing up, so I make them do it now. But apart from those weird little situations like an etude exam or Texas All-State or something, there's not really any situations where we actually get on a stage and play studies in front of people. And that's very, very important. And actually, I think we have to show so much respect for studies. Because if you imagine that you're a composer and you sit down one day and you start to write music, knowing that it's going to be played in public, you have free reign to do whatever you like. But that is not the case with a study. No composer ever approaches a study from just like freestyling. They almost always are flute players. Weirdly, Cardilert was not a flute player. He was an oboist, but that's very unusual. I think he's about the only one I know out of the standard study books that are not flute players. You know, Kohler, Anderson, Lorenzo, Boehm, all these old guys were flute players and fantastic flute players. They absolutely understood how to play the flute and they absolutely understood the problems that we encounter as flute players. And that was the point of their studies, that if they could write a set of studies, by the time we as flute players have played them all and examined them all and practiced them all, we will be better at all those difficult things on the flute at the end of the book than when we start. And this is part of my issue with people's general practice. I do not like this idea of cherry picking studies. We're going off on a tangent, but it's important. I don't like people going, okay, so I'm going to learn number 5 out of that book, and then number 12 out of that book, and then number 2 out of that book. This to me makes no sense at all. There are almost always 24 studies in every study book. Why 24? Because there's 24 keys, all the majors, all the minors. Every key presents as a problem, and the composer has written these studies to show us, to highlight to us the problems. So if we were to work from study number 1 right through to study number 24, we have encountered all the major problems in all the keys on our instrument. If we just cherry pick studies from everywhere, we're probably just choosing the same thing every time. And it's a really silly waste of time, in my opinion. So my students here, for example, we choose one study book a semester, and that's it. We just go one a week, bang, 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 and usually can get 2 books done a year. And that means by the time they graduate, they've done all the major study books, rather than just cherry picking with no kind of organization at all. So in your own practice, I really recommend you do that. It seems to me madness, this cherry picking thing. Don't like it. Cherry picking is what I call it, because it's like pulling out the nice cherries, you know. But don't do it. Practice them all, even the hard ones, because then you're actually going to make progress. And at the end of the day, apart from you and your teacher, hardly anyone's going to hear these. So that leads me to my first question for you, which is, what is the point of the G major cardinal? What was he trying to teach us with this study? Because until we understand that, we're not practicing with any purpose. So I don't do hands up. I'm the meanest flute professor ever. And I don't do hands up. I just ask people. So the person that is right beside me on my screen is Tyler. So Tyler, have you got the copy of the music in front of you? Do you know the study? Sorry, I've got it.
No. Also, my sound might cut in and out because I'm in Bogota, Colombia right now with pretty bad internet. I'm like the
That's fine.
worst person to ask.
Okay, your internet's perfect. We'll go to the next person, which is Rosemary. Rosemary Chen, what do you think? Rosemary, we've met before, haven't we?
Yeah, I was
Yeah, I recognize you straight away.
Yeah.
What is the point of this study?
Technique.
Yeah, of course, technique, but that's not specific enough. That's too general an answer. What specifically about our technique is challenging? There might be one thing, there might be 2 things, there might be 10 things. It depends. It's different from study to study.
Speed and consistency.
What do you mean by that?
Like playing it at a fast tempo consistently, like without like evenness with the
Evenness. Okay, I'm a simple guy. I need simple answers. Thank you. Okay, evenness of sound and evenness of fingers for definite. In other words, so that we don't have any like lumps and bumps and clunkiness, and all this kind of stuff. I agree with that. Anyone else want to add anything, Daisy? By the way, there's no right or wrong to this. You're allowed to say, I have no idea, or you're allowed to say something that the rest of us would disagree with, because this is very personal. But until we actually have a decision made about what we're looking and what we're thinking about, I don't think there's any point in practicing the study. So Daisy, what do you think? Anything different? Daisy, can you just speak a little closer to the microphone? I can't quite hear you. Yeah, big leaps, octave jump, she says, big leaps, absolutely tons and tons of big leaps. Second bar, look at the second bar. We've already got a monster leap there going from the G's down to the F sharps. That is very, very difficult. So we need to understand exactly what the embouchure has to do at that point. Rebecca Skousen, I'm not sure how you say it. Tell us anything else you want to add, Skousen. I got it right the second time.
Yep. I was going to agree with her in the large leaps and that your embouchure for them.
Yeah, this for me is more of an embouchure workout than it is a finger workout. It actually doesn't lie too badly on the fingers. G major, not a bad key for us. It looks a little overwhelming, but once you actually start with the slow practice and you break it down, it doesn't lie too badly. However, with what we have to do with our embouchure is a bit of a nightmare. So we really have to control that, and we really have to be listening for that. And if I was on your all-state panel, that for me is number one what I would be listening for. In fact, I didn't have an argument with someone on the TMA board, but I did have a discussion with them where I mean, I don't think this is a very sensible study to choose for Texas. I really don't. But that's irrelevant, and maybe I shouldn't be telling you that. But if I was to choose, there was different things I would be listening for. And his opinion was something like, well, you know, we're going to get great players this year because this is such a difficult study. And I don't agree, because I think it's possible to just throw yourself through this study and kind of scramble to the end and hope for the best. And that doesn't really show us anything. So don't be that person. Do not be the person that scrambles to the end, throws himself through it, and dumb luck will get everything in the right place. We can see through that, you know, don't be that person. I honestly think, and I know you'll have heard this 1,000 times, but I promise you, when you get old like me, it's true. And your committee for your TMA will be old like me. Slower and accurate is always more impressive than fast and scrappy. Okay, fast and messy is not going to work. You have to really control your tempo in this, and you have to be incredibly organized in your practice. What I actually did is I scanned my book. Oops, let's get rid of this. I scanned my book so you can see my page. Just so you can see how I approached this. So this you will see on almost every piece of music or study that I ever play. Of course, no one sees it but me, but it's there every single time. If I was to get a Mozart concerto out for you, or a Bach sonata out for you, or the Prokofiev sonata out for you, or any study book by Anderson or Boehm or any of these people, you'll always see a ton of numbers in the corner or along the top. And this is my practice metronome chart. Basically, it's just a record of where I am in my metronome practice. So it's kind of cut off here, but you can see I went, this is my goal, was eighth note equals 120. And I went for 16th notes to begin with. So 80 was my 16th. So very, very slow, building all the way up. And only then would I do it. And this would have been a 2-week process to get there. So I started at the slowest. I obviously decided to write my numbers down. And then I don't know for what reason I changed my mind and started to write up. But really, my point being, really be organized in your practice. Don't just open this every day and play. That is never going to work. I recommend the starting tempo to be less than half the tempo you're going for finally. So you have to decide, what is my final goal? Don't decide, I'll see what happens. Don't do that. That's what everyone else will do. You have to be quicker and you have to be more intelligent. I don't mean quicker in tempo, but I mean quicker in practice. More intelligent and much more organized than anybody else, especially with a little study like this. So decide on your goal tempo. For me, it was eighth note equals 120. And then you're going to half that tempo, at least. I would recommend even slower, and work it out. That means, where's my flute? Oh, over here. That means my starting tempo with metronome was something like this.
Your original sound's not on. I think that you've got to go into the audio settings to enable the original sound before it'll appear in the main window.
All right, let's do that.
Yeah, there should be a little mute button in the bottom left-hand corner with like an up arrow. If you click that, there should be an option to do audio settings.
Original sound. Where is it? Why have I not got original sound button even in the audio? Oh, original sound for musicians right in front of me. Okay, thank you. Original sound on. Okay, let's try again. So this would have been my tempo. Sounds ridiculously slow, but there's a couple of reasons why. Sorry, there's more people in the waiting room. There we go. There's a couple of reasons why that's important. First of all, just looking at this study is complicated. There's a ton of accidentals and a ton of things that we can easily get wrong. So if I practice it slowly, like incredibly slowly, the first couple of times, maybe the first couple of days, I know that I'm not going to be making all the mistakes. I'm not going to later on find out that I was playing an F natural instead of an F sharp, or a D flat instead of a D natural, whatever. Because we all know that if we practice something and we build something into it incorrect, it is very, very difficult to change it. Way harder to change it than just to get it right in the first time and then continue with our practice from there. So I cannot recommend enough that slow practice is the best practice at the beginning of this. I know you will have all heard this so many times about slow practice, and when you're young, it's very, very difficult to find that willpower to do it. But if you can train yourself to do it now, and you can trust that all of us who are a little bit more experienced are telling the truth when we tell you to slow practice, I promise you, you will reap the benefits. The other thing that I think is incredibly, incredibly important about slow practice is that I've already said that this is really an embouchure workout. Well, if we practice slowly, we can hear in much better detail how focused the sound is on every single note, and then learn how much the lips have to move on every single note. When I was young, maybe like in my teenage years, and I was studying in the UK, all my teachers had studied in Paris because geographically that's where I was. Every single one went to the Paris Conservatoire. Later on, I studied with James Galway for several years, but before that, I was always taught, and I had great teachers. I loved my teachers, apart from one guy. I loved them all very much. But I was always taught that there was 4 embouchures on the flute. You know, we have this low embouchure, then we have the kind of low to middle, then we have the middle, then we have the high, and maybe we have a separate one for all the super high notes. And that's how I played all the way through getting my orchestra job. I played in the orchestra full time for 4 or 5 years, and then I left the orchestra and started doing solo work and more teaching. And then at that point, I started to study with Galway. I was like maybe late 20s at this point. And he changed my approach to producing my sounds, because what he taught me is that there is not 4 embouchures on the flute. There is 4 million embouchures on the flute. And really every single note has its own position. And that position is governed by what sounds best. So it changes according to what note is before we're coming from, what note we're going to, what dynamic, what color, and everything. So if we just pretend that there's an embouchure for that range, it's not going to work. And it's really not going to work in a study like this. And it means in the second measure, we're going to end up playing things like which is not a good sound. We really need to show we understand where to put the lips down there. I don't know how much difference you can hear on Zoom, of course, but there's a big difference in my room. So by practicing slowly, we are learning what to listen for, and more importantly, we're learning the muscle memory of where to place these things, because muscle memory is everything. When pressure is on and when we're doing things in front of people and we're doing things at tempo, we have to rely that we have built the right muscle memory to get things correct. And that way we're not leaving things to chance. We're not just guessing and hoping for the best. And that's really what I want for you guys, is to feel fully in control when you do this. So you know the tempo you're going to play at. You've practiced it 1,000 times slowly. You've practiced it 1,000 times at tempo. You're ready for all the embouchure positions. There's no risk of any wrong notes coming in. And the other thing that's incredibly important in a study like this, I know I'm giving tons of information, but we only get an hour together, is breathing, okay? I am not really one to plan my breaths massively, especially in concert, especially in the orchestra. You have to listen to what's going around you and react to your colleagues. However, there are certain pieces I come across that you just need to plan them and stick to the plan. And this is one of them. You have to decide, where am I going to breathe and why? There should be no deciding, I'm just going to breathe there because for whatever reason. You have to really think, is this the right place to breathe, and why am I going to breathe there? Because that will show the TMA committee that you've really thought about things and you're really making decisions based on what serves the music best rather than what serves my technique best. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Okay, so how do we decide where to breathe? Tulip, how do you decide where to breathe?
Well, first I play as much as I can without figuring it out, and then I see where I really need to take a breath, and I make sure I try not to breathe on bar lines.
Oh my gosh, we can be friends. Breathing on bar lines is one of my most hated things on the planet. Do you know, you're the first person to ever say that to me in my entire career. I argue with people about this breathing on the bar line thing. I can't stand it. I think, especially in studies, it's a really bad thing to do. It really kills the flow of the music.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I'm nagging all my shits, don't breathe on the bar line. And they're like, anyway, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. I agree with everything you said. There are certain breaths that are going to fall naturally in the music. For example, in this one, in this study, they're pretty obvious. If I pull it back up again, you can see I've circled this little whatever rest that is. You know, that's clearly a little moment for us to take a breath. And there's a couple of them, not very many. Where's another one? I'm sure there's two. There you go. There's the other one there. Is that the same one that I pointed to? No, there's two. So that's about it. They're the obvious ones. So then the rest of the time we have to decide, where are we going to do it? Now, for those of you who have no idea what Tulip's talking about when she says don't breathe on the bar lines, let me show you why I do not recommend, almost always, but not necessarily always, breathing on the bar lines. So let's say, there's a bit that I marked actually here. So I actually have marked this breath in here one note later than a bar line. And that tends to be my go-to. If you think you need to breathe in the bar line, just leave it one note later and it usually solves the problem. So if I play from maybe this A here to here, and I'm going to do it slowly, I will take the breath on the bar line. So I will take the breath right here after the C, and listen to this. I don't think I can play this up to tempo anymore. It's been 2 months since I played it. Listen again. It just completely loses all momentum. But if I just leave it one note later, again. Let me play them both ways back to back. Version 1. The breath is almost hidden when you do it the second way. I'm not taking more time to breathe. I'm not taking more air or less air. I'm just putting it one note later. And to the listener, it doesn't exist. And most importantly, the momentum of going forward is still there. So please plan your breaths accordingly and really bear that in mind. Where am I breathing? If I breathe at that particular moment, is it chopping? Not a phrase, but kind of an overall arch of the music. Because this is quite complicated rhythmically and it's quite complicated harmonically and all this stuff. I'm not one to get into the analysis of anything. I kind of believe playing from your heart will solve most of these problems, but we do have to really think about it. Now, there is a moment where I actually do breathe on the bar line in this one, right here. This is a really tricky moment. Now, in an ideal world, I would not breathe there. I really wouldn't. And I thought about this a lot. And in the end, I did decide to take a breath here. Does anybody know why? You can guess. Any ideas why I might have broken my own rule here? Really? Nobody knows? You're going to kick yourself when I tell you. Because I think this bar here, well, you tell me about this bar here. Somebody tell me about this bar. It's an unusual bar. Madison, any ideas? Just because you're right beside me on my little box of people, so that's the only reason I pick on you.
I think it might be because they're like octavized, and so
Yeah,
you have to like
love
get
that.
a lot of air to get up there.
Did you just make that word up? Octavized? That's like the
No,
great
well, I mean,
word. Is that a real word?
oh, I don't know. I just say it because it's octave and it's octavized. I don't know.
You know what? I've never heard that before, and you need to like trademark that immediately because you're going to make millions of that word. That moment is octavized. I'm stealing that from you right now, and I always remember this moment that I stole it from you. So thank you for that. Madison is correct. Look, the octavization of this bar. It's a very, very difficult bar for the lips. Actually, the problem is not going up. We can do that pretty easily. It's then getting back down. That is what is so difficult here. So for me, having practiced this and thinking, I need to make this as successful as possible for this video, because when I record these videos for you, I can't have any mistakes. It has to be a good, clean take. I decided to take the breath because it allows me to reset the embouchure in a cleaner movement down. Everybody do that. Play this, we'll play it slowly, and you can keep yourself on mute so you won't hear it. But let's play from maybe here, and we won't take the breath, and you'll see how much harder it is to get the lips in the right place. And really listen to the quality of sound on the low notes. Can I annotate? Yes, I can. I don't know what that button does. So I'm talking about these notes here. Because I guarantee there will be so many people that miss them. Miss every note. The top note will come out just perfectly, but the low note will not. And that's backwards to where our kind of mind takes us. We assume the top note's the hardest, but it's not. They're all octaves, so they're fine. But it's getting back down that's hard. And of course the note's changing half a step each time. So let's play from here. Slowly. I'll keep myself unmuted. I apologize for any wrong notes. And you'll see what I mean. And really listen to the low note. Okay? Everybody can do this in their own time. Now, once you've done it a couple of times, let's take the breath, and you can really reset the embouchure. I appreciate as well in my recording I'm doing it quite a bit faster than this, but I don't know what stage you're all at with your practice on this, so that's why we're not going to do it too fast. But you see my point about taking that breath there, which is more of how do I word this? More of a technical breath than actually a top up of air breath. And I don't recommend you do it too much, but if you have to do it in a study like this, choose your moments very, very wisely. Okay, what else do I want to talk about? I know there's so much to get through in this. So we've talked about breathing, we've talked about what's it all about. I want to talk about low notes, because this for me, oh, hang on, if I do that, is it going to let me move? No, erase. Oh, come on. I want to talk about the low notes because I think that's a very misleading challenge in this study. I think it looks like it goes high and that's where everybody gets worried, but I'm almost certain that the low notes is what is going to separate the very, very top from the next level in the success of this. As a general rule, and it's a very general rule that obviously does not apply to everything, but as a general rule, you want to play your low notes louder than your high notes. Of course, not everything is that simple, but if you keep that in mind, it's a good place to start. We can look at this second bar actually to start with. The majority of people are going to sound like this. Again, I'm going to keep it at a very slow tempo, but they're going to sound something like this. Do you know what I mean? Where the low notes are kind of barely there. Do the opposite. As many opportunities as you can to practice this, do it. Quiet on the top, loud on the bottom. Which means I have to practice those two notes to find out where to place them. Like Jaws. You got to do it. You got to think about where's the tongue. You got to think about where's the air. You got to think about where's the embouchure. And only once we have the low notes isolated and sounding good, can we then put the bit before it. And in my practice, I would spend quite a lot of time playing this note, oops, this note, and this note. That is the tricky move. Getting the embouchure from there to there and there to there. Everything else kind of takes care of itself. But if we can isolate this move, and really find a way to place the higher note quieter than the lower note, then we'll get the better effect when we put it together. Rather than and splitting all the bottom notes. If you don't take time and pay attention to this little detail in your practice, you're going to end up not maybe getting to the level with this study that you're capable of. And even more so on bars like this. Look at this, where we have to get down to a low C sharp. That, of course, is a very, very tricky note to get out. So let's talk about that particular embouchure position for a low C sharp. Who can I pick on? Sarah, what do you have to do to get the low C sharp out? Any ideas? There's no right or wrong, we're just discussing.
Think about where your airstream's going across the flute or more into the flute for the lower notes.
So you're talking about angle of air. 100% agree, angle of air definitely plays a part. What do we have to do for the angle of air?
More air into the flute for the low C sharp.
Yeah, so we're gonna lower the angle and we're gonna blow a bit more into the blowhole. What else do we have to do for low notes? In particular, low C sharp and low C.
Tuning.
Say again?
Tuning.
Tuning?
For
What
C
about it?
because C sharp is one of the problem notes on the flute, so you have to make the adjustment so it's in tune.
Yeah, I mean, I think more the octave above is our problem C sharp. This one could be a little flat, I guess. But for me, this something else. Sorry, I forgot. I didn't mean for you to answer that. I'm not going to just ask you 1,000 questions in a row, but thank you for volunteering. And please feel to continue to answer. For me, there's one enormous thing about playing a low note that we probably don't discuss in as much detail as we should, partly because I don't think people understand it, so I'm about to try and discuss it now. Rebecca, any idea? Oh, sorry, you're walking. Let me not ask you. Madison. Okay, Rebecca's going to answer. Rebecca, tell us.
You could drop your like wider mouth, like dropping your jaw,
Yes. Why do we do that though?
because it opens the like resonance chamber in your mouth.
Does it? Possibly. I'm not sure. But is having a more resonant mouth going to help us get low notes out? I don't think so.
I know it works. I don't know what exactly it does.
This is my point. It absolutely does work. And so you're absolutely correct. I'm not criticizing your answer. It's an absolutely perfect answer. But my point has just been proven. I do not think we understand why we do things sometimes. And if we understand why we're doing it a little better, we'll probably manage to do it a bit better. So, who can tell me, why do we tend to make a bigger space and drop the jaw for the low notes?
For warm air. To blow warm air.
Who said it? Who said it? Who said it? Who was that? Who just said warm air?
Rita.
Rita! Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't see you, Rita. I just heard your voice. Yes, warm air. Perfect. Okay, next question then. What is warm air? Anybody? It's interesting. It took me a long time to understand this. I went through my entire career not really understanding this until I was probably late 20s, and then I really thought about it. And actually, I wrote a book a couple of years ago called The Flute Gym, and there's a whole chapter about this, and I really thought about it, and I finally understood what was going on, and I spoke to some scientists and things. It's very simple, actually. We talk about warm air all the time and cold air and all that. What are we actually changing, though, when we're dealing with warm and cold air? What is changing on the flute? Anyone? Airspeed. You'll have all see. You'll kick yourself, but of course it's airspeed. Airspeed changes, and there's something else we can control on the flute in terms of the air. We've got angle of air, we've got speed of air, and we have one other thing, which is anybody? Daisy, you look like you're desperate to tell me.
The amount of air.
Thank you very much. The quantity of air. So let's forget about angle for now. Let's just deal with quantity of air and speed of air. These are two separate factors. Now, I hear tons of people talking about air pressure, and I think it literally makes me roll my eyes sometimes, because I think it's an incredibly unhelpful term that is a combination of air speed and air quantity. And really, to understand the fundamentals of sound production on the flute, we have to separate it into those two things. Otherwise, we're never fully in control of what we're doing. So let's not talk about air pressure, because that's a bit of a wishy-washy answer that I think as flute teachers and as flute players we should know better. So we've got air speed and air quantity. What is the difference? What do they each control? Nobody knows? Come on. Rosemary, you know. Guess if you don't know. I know you can do it right.
Tone quality?
No. That's far too wishy-washy an answer. I like straightforward, simple answers. You're far too clever for me. I can tell you're more intelligent than I am because you're thinking in such a complicated way. Sarah, what is the airspeed control and what is quantity of air control?
Just where air is going versus how much air you're taking in.
No. I mean, yes, but no. Daisy, we're coming back to you. Come on, somebody's going to get this right. You will make my day if you get this right. Somebody said it. Rita.
Pitch.
What specifically controls pitch? Which one?
The speed.
Yes. Speed of air controls pitch. Okay. Speed of air controls pitch. What about quantity of air? What does that control?
How loud it is.
Yes, we got it. Okay. Speed controls pitch. Quantity controls volume. They are two completely separate factors that are completely independent of each other. Of course, the reality of playing the flute is that they kind of sometimes get a bit mixed together, and that would be air pressure. But in its most fundamental things, we have speed and we have quantity, and they control separate things. Now, why is that so relevant? Because let's say we want to play a high note very, very quietly. Both things have to change because we're changing the pitch and we're changing the volume. A high note is the pitch, quietly is the volume. So if we want to play a high note quietly, what has to happen to the air? Daisy, we're sticking with you since you volunteered all the answers.
You have to have a smaller quantity, but you have to increase the speed so the pitch
Yeah.
stays.
A star, A plus, gold star. Congratulations, you've just earned your master's degree in flute performance. That is exactly it. You have to have very, very fast air, but just a tiny amount of it. Is that difficult to do? Yes. Because the natural instinct is to blow harder. And with harder, it means fast air, but it also means more air. Alternatively, if we want to play loud in the low register, who can I pick on? Rosemary. If we want to play loud in the low register, what two things have to change?
Like slower air and like more open in your mouth.
Not more, exactly. You got it exactly correct. Slower air and lots of it. Is that difficult to do? Yes, because the tendency when we play with slow air is to not blow so much. So that's why playing high and quiet is so difficult. That's why playing loud and low is so difficult. And until we understand that, how do we even have a fighting chance? We're just like guessing. We're just guessing. Let's not guess. Let's actually figure out how to play the flute and then capitalize in on that. So in this moment here, let's go back to our screen. In this moment here, we have to slow down the speed of the air to get the low C sharp. Well, how do we do that? Someone already told us. We open our mouth, we make a bigger space. And the benefit of also making a bigger space is we get more air released. So we're actually getting both effects with one move. We're getting more volume and we're getting a lower note. So make sure that you're absolutely positioning that C sharp. The way I think of it is I imagine my jaw is kind of on a hinge here. I mean, it is on a hinge. The top lip is going to direct the angle. I think it was Sarah discussed the angle with us. I can't quite remember. The top lip can direct the angle. The bottom jaw is the one that's able to lower and raise, kind of like an elevator. And that's going to create the bigger and smaller space. Now you've all, I'm sure, heard the analogy of, the garden hose where you put your finger over the garden hose. If you uncover it, the water just goes, it kind of dribbles out because it has no, there's no pressure build-up. This is why pressure frustrates me that we talk about it, because there's no pressure build-up at the back, which ultimately decreases the speed of the water traveling. Or we can cover half of it, which does build the pressure up because the space would be smaller, and then we get the same quantity of air, but it's moving at a faster pace. It's moving at a faster pace. So that's why opening the space is going to be useful here. Nothing to do with resonance. It's great that we can get resonance, but actually here we need volume. And volume is going to be to do with quantity of air. The problem with putting quantity of air into the flute is we risk blowing too fast. If it blows too fast, we'll end up with this. Splitting the note. That's all you're doing when you're splitting a note. You're overblowing, you're getting too fast air. So make sure that we are practicing this D. Let me get my little pencil that I love. This D. Oops, I want fatter. There we go. This D and this C sharp. And until we can do this move, we are not ready to play this bar. Not. In fact, if you get this move proper, if you can really figure out with the placement of the low C sharp, you can take a low C, because it's the same position almost, and you can crescendo through a low C and it will never split, because you now understand that all you're doing is expanding the space. So the low C is limited by the physicality of our mouth. The more you can expand, the more volume you'll get. The point where it will not work anymore is where you just can't move the jaw anymore. It still won't split, but it won't get any louder. I'll try and show you what I mean. It's not splitting, it's nowhere near splitting, but I just can't open my jaw any wider. My jaw can't go anymore, so there's no more space to make. But I'm not splitting it. As long as you're able to do that, you can get these low notes no problem. So really spend some time making sure that the position of this note is correct and the position of this note is correct, because the difference between them is enormous, absolutely enormous. It's almost like there's a kind of barrier between that octave and that octave. There is no similarity whatsoever in the position. of those two notes. And that's incredibly important, because I guarantee you that your committee or your panel, whatever you want to call them, will listen, and you'll think they're listening to all this fancy finger stuff, and they're not. They're listening for this, and they're listening for this, and they're listening for that low D later. You know, these are the moments which will separate the great players from the good players, and I want you all to be a great player. Okay, the next thing I very, very quickly want to talk about, because I know we're running out of time, is the position of the tongue for these articulation passages. I wasn't really thinking about talking about this until I just practiced this for 10 minutes before the class. As I say, I practiced this properly a little while ago and recorded it for Flute World, and then I haven't touched it since. I had rehearsal this morning for a concert tonight, and then I came to do this class, and I quickly thought, oh, I better remind myself of this study. And I was really thinking about my tonguing, because it wasn't quite the sound I was looking for. And I realized something, and whether it's helpful or not for you, I don't know, but I hope it is. In this position, in this piece, when we're moving this quickly, I think it's quite a dangerous thing to bring the tongue too forward in the mouth. I appreciate that's probably everything you're not told. You know, like people say the opposite, you know, tip of the tongue on the lip. That does not actually work for me at a fast tempo. I'm not saying don't use the tip of the tongue. I am definitely using the tip of the tongue rather than the flat part of the tongue. That's a different sound, a different articulation. But I have to bring the tongue a little further back in the mouth, to the point where if you, this actually makes me sneeze for some reason to do, but if you rub your tongue from where your lip joins your gum and then keep going back, that for some reason just makes me want to sneeze when I do it. I don't know why, but if you do it, you will get to a ridge where the mouth goes up. The tongue should be just in front of the ridge, I think. Rather than, I can't even do it fast. If I bring it further forward to the mouth, I can't get that speed at single tonguing. I would have to go into double tonguing, and I'm not interested in double tonguing in this piece. I want it single tongued so I can really control the position of each note. So I would recommend you really think about where is the tongue in the mouth, and experiment with where do I have to put it to get exactly the sound I want at tempo. And once you find it, you continue to practice in that position even at the slower tempo. Why do we do it? So that we're building the muscle memory, because the muscle memory always builds better at a slow tempo than a fast tempo. In fact, the truth is, before I came to NSU to teach, and before COVID, and I was playing, you know, full time as a job, and I was doing maybe 20 Mozart concertos a year, something like that. Whenever I was practicing for it, I would never ever play the Mozart concerto at tempo until the day before the rehearsal. It was just the routine I got into. I was playing them so regularly, I would take about 2 weeks to rememorize it and just tidy up a few things, maybe change a cadenza here and there. And I would start at 80, next day 85, next day 90, so on, hover around 100 for a couple of days, and then I would get to like 115 the day before, 2 days before, and then the day before I'd put it to 120, and that's my performance tempo. It became like just a routine of doing that because I had to do this so often. And it always surprised people that I was not playing the performance tempo for 2 weeks. The same can be said with the Eber concerto. I had to play it so many times, and often I would never be putting it to full tempo until just a few days before. So if you have enough time to get it to full tempo, great, do that. But then slow it back down again. Pick slower tempos in the run up to the audition. It will really, really help that muscle memory, I promise you. Okay, is there anything else I want to talk about? Yes, there is. The other thing you have to be careful about with a study like this, because it goes along at 100 miles an hour, is that sometimes, and I hope this doesn't contradict everything I've just said, but sometimes it is possible to actually overwork. We have to find the place to play this where we're not working too little so it sounds sloppy, but we're also not working too hard so it sounds ugly and stuck. You all know when, you know, for example, when we're tonguing fast, if we kind of overwork, we get this sound. You know, we don't want that. The trick to that is really to work a lot less. I talk to my students about sloppy tonguing because sloppy tonguing translates into incredibly beautiful tonguing on the flute. The less forceful with the tongue, the more fantastic you're going to get what was I just playing the other week that I really was thinking about? Oh, Beethoven's Sixth Symphony. If you know Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, the very first entry of the flute. What we don't want is, like, we want almost like the tongue is doing nothing. And it's the same here. Not and so on. So that's really something to find out. Find out the limitations of where it stops sounding good. And find out the limitations of where it starts sounding good when it's relaxed. And it's a very, very narrow window. And that's where you have to slot into every time. And be very, very aware of it. Now, the level of working, if that makes sense, is going to be different on these low notes here as it might be to these notes here. You have to understand exactly where each register is going to respond and play from there. And so practicing slowly and really, really listening is going to be your best friend here. Does that make sense what I'm getting at? Cool. We have 5-6 minutes left. Let me stop my share. Do you guys want to ask me anything about this? I'm very happy to try and help any danger moments or anything. I know you'll all be at different stages of your practice. Does anyone want to ask me anything about it? We really need like 2 weeks of classes on a study like this. It's very, very complex.
I have a question about bar 18 for beat 4, like
Yeah.
moving from the E natural to C. What could we do for the fingers there?
Coming down the run.
Yes.
Well, take your pinky off for the top E. Do you know about this?
Yes. Wait, no.
Yeah, don't put your pinky down for that E.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right, yeah, leave it off. This is very, very common. Whenever you have to do quick passages in that top E section. Eber Concerto is a perfect example. If you know the Eber Concerto, the third movement. This bit here. I leave the pinky off. If you leave it on, it's very hard to get the E to speak on the way back down. With the pinky on, but with off. So I would really recommend leaving the pinky off for that E. To be honest, unless I'm playing quietly, I don't really put my pinky on for the top E because it sharpens it so much. I don't think that's a cheap fingering. I don't think that's an artificial fingering. I don't think that's an alternative fingering. I don't think that's a fake fingering. I don't think that's any of those labels. I think it's an intelligent fingering, and I think we should be guided by what sounds best and what makes life, I don't want to say life easier, but what makes it more possible to play musically. So definitely keep the pinky off there. The other thing is, the C is going to look after itself, and the G sharp and the E before it are tricky notes. So really spend time with the embouchure on focusing on the E, because if you can focus on the E and get it in the right place with the pinky off, the C will come out anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Also, please do not forget the power of rhythm practice. Do you all practice in rhythms? So for example, what I mean, there's 2 rhythms I use all the time. The first is what I call long short, which is dotted. So you go long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short. And then there's the Scottish rhythm, I call it, which is the reverse, short, long. So we go short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long. And you can practice the whole thing with a metronome this kind of way. So we'll do long, short. And then reverse it. And in this passage that you're talking about there, perfect moment. Yeah, these to me are just like go-to practice techniques that I'm going to use every single day. And I'm going to vary the speed, and I'm going to do it slow, I'm going to do it fast. But it really, again, is training muscle memory. And when I talk about muscle memory, by the way, I'm not talking so much about fingers, I'm talking about this. Of course, muscle memory on our fingers is a thing, and we have to practice that, but our fingers are the easy part of playing the flute, as you all know. This is what's hard about playing the flute. And the more detail that we listen and the more slow practice we do, the more we can control it. So yeah, really isolate these little moments. It's great that you've even spotted that that's a problem area, and then you can fix it. If you don't spot it, it ain't going to get fixed. But if you spot it, you can fix it. So be listening all the time for the problem areas. Anything else that I can help you guys with? Are we done? This is probably the first time ever that I have got to a class early. Does anyone want to play the study for us? We've got 3 minutes. Anyone brave? No. Okay, I wouldn't be brave either. It's very tricky. It's a very, very tricky study. So I'm doing 2 more classes based on these. Number 2, the second class, which will be next month, we have a whole month between, will be on the slow study, which again, incredibly challenging, but really only challenging if you're listening for the right things. My worry with that one is that people aren't aware of certain things that they should be listening for and then think it's easy. If you think that study's easy, please talk to your teacher. It's very, very difficult. Make the decision, what is this about? Because once you know what it's about, you might actually be able to make some progress. And then number 3, for me, number 3 is probably the easiest one of all 3 in many ways. So I'll explain how I approached that and how we got there. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about this one. Also, just to let you know, just in case you guys are not aware, my university is right on the border of Louisiana and Texas. We have tons of scholarships for people from Texas. So I'm just about to open recruitment for next academic year. If anybody wants to talk about coming to study with me either this year or the following year, drop me an email. My email address is very easy to find. It's Clark, CLARKS, @nsula.edu. But if you go to Northwestern State, you'll find me, or you can find me on Instagram. Drop me a message anywhere. I have a great relationship with the university where I'm allowed to offer basically free tuition to almost anybody that comes here. As long as you pass my audition and come to my studio. It's not quite that simple on paper, but technically that's what would happen in the end because we can stack so many scholarships for you. So I'm very excited to be by Texas. This is my first semester here and I'm really happy to be here and get to work with lots of Texans. Almost my entire studio is musicians from Texas. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. You guys are brave. You know, I also recorded the Louisiana All-State Studies and also the Alabama All-State Studies for them this year, and the Texas ones are like 1,000 times harder. So you guys be brave, be responsible in your practice, and absolutely knock them dead when it comes to the audition. I am rooting for you all. If there's anything I can help you with or you want some questions answered, drop me a message, drop me an email, drop me an Instagram message, whatever, and I'll absolutely do my best to explain a few things. But good luck with the additions. I will hang around for 30 seconds at the end of the class in case anyone wants to ask me anything privately once anything's gone. But thank you guys for joining for this one. I'll see you for the next one. Good luck with your practice. Have a great afternoon.
Could I try playing real quick? Actually, I messaged Jarrett when you asked in the chat. I don't think you saw it.
Oh, sure. You want to play?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Go for it.
I'm just mainly trying to get it more consistent right now. I think that's why I said consistency earlier, because I have the intervals down. I just need to get the fingers consistent. That's always been a struggle for me.
Okay, let's play like the first 4.
Are you able to hear that?
Yeah, let's do it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it. Oh, hey, Rosemary, just put your original sound on.
Oh, yeah.
We always forget about this.
Let me check if I have it on. Oh, I forgot how to put it on.
Are you on a Mac or Windows?
I'm on a Windows.
Okay, so see the little microphone button at the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the mute button, not the microphone button. If you click the little arrow beside the mute button, and then it should say audio settings.
Oh. Audio settings. I see it.
Right, open your audio settings, and then select audio. You should already have that.
Yeah.
And if you just scroll down, do you see where it says audio
Original
profile?
sound. I see it now.
Yeah, click it on there. I had to find it as well earlier.
All right. So, does that work?
No, do it again.
Hmm.
Oh, then you have to click on the top left. Sorry. See on
Okay.
the top left of your screen?
Yeah.
It now says original sound. Make sure it says on.
Yeah. Original sound.
It should just be on the main screen, like right on the top left, above where my head is.
Okay. I think that's on now.
Okay, play a bit and I'll tell you. No, I still can't hear you. So, do you have a button at the top of the screen? Like, not in any menu or anything, literally on the main Zoom screen above my picture? Do you have a thing in the top left that says original sound for musicians?
Okay, now I see it.
Yep,
Does it work?
we got it. Hey, Rosemary, very good, very good. I can help you with this straight away. Play me measure 4.
Replay it or?
Yeah, just play that bar on its own. Very good. Okay, now do it again. I know you think that this is a finger thing. It's not. Your fingers are absolutely perfect. But what you're doing is, because you're a little scared of the measure, you're holding your air back. I want you to imagine that your air has to really travel through the tube. So you're going this way. Look at my picture. Look at my screen. So the air's got to come right down here out the end of the flute. Not this way, but you're really filling it. So when you get to that moment, ya da 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 da. And if you do that, it'll be perfect. Just do it again and really push, not push, I don't like the word, but fill the tube with the air. Good, blow more air, more air. Yes, there you go. Again. Very good. I promise you that what happens, you see, is we get a bit scared, so we hold the air thinking that no one's going to notice it, but unfortunately it does the opposite. Anyone that's listening goes, because they kind of hear that something's changed. So all these difficult moments, really blow through them. The more you can blow through them, the more likely you'll get it absolutely spot on. Okay, the other thing I would say is one bar below that, the next line, so measure 6, you're playing up the octave on the low notes. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I noticed it and I fixed it in the second two.
Okay, good. It's a very difficult moment.
Yeah,
So please, I had to spend a lot of time just noodling around on this part ages ago. Do you know, find your own little theme and variation on this, just so that move from the embouchure is so precise and you're not guessing. No guessing, just know it. Okay, do that one more time. Yeah, go on. Beginning. Go through. Very good, very good, very good. What fingering are you using for that top F sharp?
Top F sharp, just
The normal one? Or using a middle finger?
I was thinking of switching it to 3, but I already.
Yeah, I actually think 3 is going to be a bit easier for you there. It's going to be a bit more spoken. You know, I've been experimenting a lot with F sharp recently, and I've decided, for years I've just used the middle one, but actually I think the third one is sometimes a bit better. The middle one is going to be great in loud situations, but sometimes the 3 speaks a bit faster, I've found. So try that again with the third finger and just see if it works a bit better for you. And remember to get the embouchure there, but also remember to keep blowing. Yeah, there you go. Problem solved. Very nice. So I think you're playing this beautifully, actually. Have you been doing it with a metronome?
I have.
Okay, so what's your maximum tempo on metronome?
Currently it's about 95 if I really push it.
Okay, don't push it, sit at 95. But what you're going to do is you're going to play it at 95 and then you're going to play it with all the rhythms that we spoke about in the class, also at 95. And once you've done both rhythms, you're then going to go to maybe 100, only 5 notches up. And you're going to sit on that for a day and you're going to do the same with the rhythms and then just 102 maybe. We always are trying to put these huge big jumps in our metronome, but tiny jumps will also get you to where you want to be and get the brain remembering what's going on. You're absolutely on the right path with this. But number one rule for you, and the thing that's going to sort everything out, don't stop blowing.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest problems when I get nervous. Like when I play for people, I get really nervous, and then the air support just disappears. So.
Do you know what I think about? Somebody told me this a few years ago, a friend of mine, and it works great. When I'm nervous and I'm worried about my air, I try and, it sounds a bit bonkers, I know, but try it. Focus on relaxing your ankles. You can't relax your ankles, right? You can't do it. But it puts all your energy into relaxing, and then you can breathe and put the air. And I also, so I think of relaxing my ankles, and I really think of blowing this way down the tube. Not this way. The lips, sure, are doing lots of stuff here to do it, but this way down the tube. If I can do that, I can absolutely do it. And you can practice this in everything you do, even when you're doing your tone exercises, your scales, whatever. Really start thinking of relaxed ankles and blowing down the tube. It will work for you, I promise you. Okay? Great. I have to stop or I'm going to be late for work.
Yeah, no worries. I understand.
But honestly, you're in great shape. Just keep going. Be really methodical about the practice. It's a very difficult study. You're already 95% of the way there. Don't start turning the tempo up until you really sort all the little moments that are maybe a bit risky. Sort them out and then you'll feel great about it. You can do it. I believe in you. I promise you.
Thank you.
Okay, good luck, Rosemary.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.
You too.